What better way to kick off the censored gaming series than with the original Mortal Kombat? The game's gory violence caused a public outcry following its release, spurred on by both mass media and influential politicians. Groups demanded for the game to be censored or banned, and this controversy was a key part in the creation of the ERSB rating system a year after its release. A system where games are required to be rated, and for said rating to be placed on the game's cover. Even commercials for the game came under fire for supposedly promoting violence, and EGM magazine awarded Mortal Kombat with Most Controversial Game of the Year in 1993. Whilst the arcade version of the game avoided being struck by the censorship hammer, and the home releases have no cases of regional censorship, the majority of ports had the violence toned down in many ways. Named Mortal Monday, Mortal Kombat experienced a simultaneous release on 4 platforms: the Genesis, SNES, Game Gear and Game Boy. The Genesis version removed all blood and drastically altered the fatalities to make them less violent. Although with a cheat code these edits would be removed and the game would revert to a version that's comparable to the arcades. Fun fact, this code is a reference to the rock band Genesis and their album ABACAB. However, there is one notable exception that separates this release from the arcades, this being the lack of corpses on the lower level of the pit stage. The Game Gear port, as well as the later Master System version which was based on it, is for censorship purposes the same as the Genesis, with their own cheat code to decensor the game. But important to note is that these versions remove the lower part of the pit stage entirely, thus the stage fatality is impossible to perform even with the code. Over on the SNES side, things are even worse. Whilst the blood wasn't removed entirely, it was drastically reduced and recoloured so that it doesn't resemble blood. Like the Genesis version, fatalities were altered and the pit stage lacked corpses at the bottom of it. But unique to this version is that fatalities were renamed into finishing bonus. Additionally, Sub-Zero's ending no longer talks about the assassination of Shang Tsung, but the destruction. The Game Boy version received the usual treatment of completely removing the blood and neutering fatalities, plus it also removed the pit's bottom section entirely. Whilst this version lacks endings, thus the censorship present in Sub-Zero's SNES ending is not seen here, fatalities are yet again renamed, this time into finishing move. Unlike the Sega platforms, the Nintendo games have no codes to disable censorship, a fact that Sega would attack Nintendo with, using commercials to make this difference known to the public. Nintendo on the other hand slammed Sega in the midst of the controversy surrounding the game for allowing the game to be released as is, which caused Sega's Spanish division to cancel the Spanish version of the game, fearing a public uproar. This is not the only time that a country would be prevented from obtaining a copy of the game. In 1994, Germany banned all Sega versions of Mortal Kombat, and in 1999, Brazil banned the game for possibly inspiring the murder spree of a 24-year-old college student. Back to the censored fatalities, and surprisingly, Scorpions and Sonya's are actually the same as the arcade in all of the mentioned versions by default. Also of interest is that Raiden's and Sub-Zero's fatalities are more graphic in the SNES version than the Sega games without the codes. The game was also ported to the Amiga, DOS and Sega CD platforms. The Amiga version is comparable to the uncensored Genesis game, whilst the DOS version is completely uncensored. The Sega CD version is also completely uncensored, without the use of any cheat code, although the bottom of the pit stage is slightly different from the arcade version, but it does not appear that this is due to censorship reasons. Whilst the negative attention that the original game received eventually died down, the later games in the Mortal Kombat series are also no stranger to censorship and bans, even to this very day. Which begs the question, what will be the series' next victim of censorship? As always, thank you for watching. Censored Gaming is the definitive resource for censored gaming. Make sure you have subscribed to stay up to date with the latest edits and changes in games.